Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing MPR, the editor of Punchline magazine. Welcome to Punchline Talks. Today I'm joined by James Geary, the client director from Randall Payne. Hi there, good afternoon, James. Thanks ever so much for joining us. It's been the government's big tax day today. What is it? What does it mean? And what does it mean for companies for Gloucestershire?
Okay, well, it's a new concept really, and it's tax day is an unofficial name for it. But what's tended to happen in budgets for many, many years is that there's a lot of headline grabbing, immediate tax changes, a lot of reports on the state of the economy. And then sitting behind that are a lot of consultations and calls for evidence on the future of tax. And they tend to get often missed sometimes because of the big headline grabbing things that are going on elsewhere. So for that reason, the Chancellor this year has decided to split it into two. So we had the budget on 3rd of March. And yesterday was the day when they said we're going to release a lot of consultations about the future of tax. And it's quite big this year because of the whole coronavirus pandemic and the amount of support the government has had to shell out over the last 12 months. They need to repay that somehow. So really quite sensibly, what they've started doing is saying, how can we look at reforming the tax system? We already had an agenda to simplify it, modernize it, digitize it. So let's bring this all together now and start to look at what we can do about it. So there were, I think, 30 documents came out yesterday around various pieces. So we can talk about some of those.
Okay, well, I know you and some of the guys from Randall Payne have been poring over the details. What's really caught your eye? What's the number one thing that you think is going to affect the business community?
Okay, I think the biggest thing that's come out of this for me, and this sort of transcends across 3 or 4 of the documents that came out yesterday, which are all of a similar vein. It's moving on with the making tax side of things. So that's already in place for VAT. We knew it was coming for income tax. Longer term, we know it's coming for corporation tax as well. But actually what they're doing now is they're looking a bit more closely at this and around timing of tax payments as well. So moving towards a quarterly system of reporting income and expenses for individuals, we knew that was coming, but actually looking at aligning the date that tax is paid more closely with the income and profits which it relates is what they're starting to explore. And this is still very high level at the moment, but in theory that could mean that we end up with a system where, say, individual landlords, for example, could be reporting their income and expenses quarterly and making a tax payment quarterly, as opposed to currently where they're making a big lump sum payment every 6 months, which is probably between 12 and 18 months after profits to which it relates.
Isn't this going to have a massive effect on the turnover of my company, though? Because suddenly, rather than paying at the end of the financial year, I'm going to be having to fork out twice, once for VAT and once for the quarterly corporation tax, if that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, the cash flow impact is potentially huge, at least for the transition anyway, once it's in place. It seems to me that it's a very sensible system, but getting there is difficult because if we have a sudden switch, you flick a switch and suddenly you're paying tax at the same time, whilst at the same time still having to pay your tax from a year or 2 years ago. Cash flow impact is huge. So that's why it's good at this stage that it's a very early stage discussion, and there will clearly need to be some kind of transition to manage that.
What about the big internet providers now? There was talk beforehand in some of the national press that they was at long last going to make it a level playing field. Google, Amazon, Facebook, all the rest of them. Are they going to have to pay? Are they going to make them pay their fair share of tax? Or are still the big retailers, carrying the burden, shall we say?
Well, they're trying. They're really trying. The difficulty with this, and they've brought in what's called digital services tax for this, and it's been around now for a couple of years. And these big companies are paying it. But the reality is that the likes of Amazon and eBay have effectively just put up their charges for their customers to fund it. So yes, it's an extra tax. Yes, the government is getting it, but those companies are not really footing the bill for it. Their customers are. And it's a really, really difficult conundrum.
Okay, is there anything else that's caught your eye? What about some of the other taxes? Business rates, that was another thing that we were really worried about.
Yes, and there's not a huge amount about business rates. I mean, overall, for the whole business rate system. Really what they're talking about is how can we reform it and turn it into a more modern system. And so that's quite sort of high level at the moment. But one particular change that it is worth highlighting here that they're looking at bringing in, and this has been highlighted by the coronavirus support over the last year, where apparently an awful lot of property owners or second homeowners have been declaring their property as a business, even if it's been either long-term let or unoccupied at all, so that they can register it for business rates. The advantage of that for them is that council tax is a lot more expensive and they avoid it. But also, if you're talking about a small property, then its rateable value may be such that business rates actually is nil anyway. Then on top of that, what they're doing, some of these property owners, is claiming the COVID support grants for that property because it's registered for business rates.
Wow.
So this is a loophole that that they're looking to close. Obviously, there's limited amount they can do looking back now, but going forward, they need to protect the council tax revenues.
So if I had a nice little holiday let or a house actually in Tenby, which this is my little pipe dream. So I have a holiday house in Tenby. They put it on my council, I put it for the government that it's actually a business, and then I might be able to claim £10,000 COVID relief on top.
That's what's been happening, and unfortunately, as with a lot of these COVID support mechanisms, with the priority being speed of delivery, there just hasn't been the chance for the government to review these as they've happened. So what the proposal is looking like now is that there are specific rules around furnished holiday lettings for income tax that have been around for a long time, and that requires the owner to make that property available to let for at least 140 days a year, actually let for at least 70, and not more than 30 days to the same person. So we're talking about short stay lettings here. There is a relaxation in that for COVID because obviously they've not been allowed to do that, but they're looking to move those rules across to the business rates qualification as well. So that's what we're looking at.
Well, okay. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time, and thanks ever so much for joining us today. And James, I'm sure we'll catch up I'm sure we'll catch up again very soon. Thanks you ever so much.
No problem.
Punchline Talks. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah.